I've just outlined how we have built a framework for good governance and discipline and shared our trade-offs against the goal of developing people. Meanwhile, we also saw an evolving portfolio strategy. To understand our opportunities, we stood back and asked ourselves what the key ingredients of our success have been since the founding of Temasek. We had two important success factors. One, the people with the passion, commitment, and capability to think long-term and to deliver. Second, the success of Singapore itself. With Singapore's success, companies like Singapore Airlines, Singtel, and PSA all have benefited from, as well as contributed to, Singapore's success as a business hub and an economy. It is not a surprise that many of our portfolio companies have outgrown Singapore. Singapore Airlines could not have succeeded by flying between Seletar and Changi, or even between Tuas and Changi. Beyond Singapore, we were confident that the transformation of Asia was going to be an exciting story, which also adds to Singapore's own growth potential. The Asia story would also significantly multiply the opportunities that we and our TLCs have had in growing with Singapore. Asia, including Singapore, was where we wanted to be. Thus, we decided to shift our portfolio stance from about 85% exposure to Singapore and the OECD economies. We articulated our Asia interests in the shape of a rebalanced portfolio transformation, with 1/3 underlying exposure to Singapore, 1/3 to the OECD economies, and a new 1/3 share for the rest of Asia. This is a doubling of our previous exposure to Asia. The projected portfolio shift was not a target cast in stone, but a broad stretch of our risk appetite. We felt comfortable to dial up our risk exposure by moving into the then emerging Asia because we already had a stable and low-risk portfolio, particularly in our Singapore blue chips. At the same time, we were also signaling our confidence in the long-term prospects of Asia. We saw 4 main engines of growth for ourselves in Asia, from India and South Asia to ASEAN, from Singapore to China and North Asia. As a result of Asia's strength over the last few years, we ended up with a 40% exposure to the rest of Asia, while our OECD exposure, largely in Australia, shrank to about 20% over the last 2 years. We mulled over this resultant balance. We remain very comfortable with Asia. Growth will not be a straight line trajectory. We understand that. We can expect bumps along the way, but the longer-term potential remains strong. And by longer term, we are looking at 20, 30 years. As Asia continues its development curve, it will also de-risk. We had also planned to add new exposures such as Latin America, Africa, Middle East, and Russia. This saw us opening new offices in Mexico City and Sao Paulo, Brazil last year, after more than a year of analysis and study. After 2 years of introspection, our conclusion was to maintain our 40-30-20-10 portfolio mix. My friends joke that this sounds like a football formation, and they wonder whether it was going on the offensive or on the defensive, depending how you count the numbers. I explained that it signals our continued focus on Singapore at 30%, with the rest of Asia at 40%, giving us an overall exposure to Asia, including Singapore, of 70% or more. OECD exposure will be around 20%, plus up to 10% exposure to new geographies like Latin America, Africa, and elsewhere.